because our wives help us to make sure that we stay in line and pick up the pieces when we mess something up. So we appreciate them being here. We're going to get to them in just a minute. And then after the break, after lunch, we will actually have Father Joshua Worth in here talking about the Baha'i faith, Christian or cult, which ought to be good because I don't even know if I'm saying that right. Then we'll have Brad and Lisa Eisminger talking about the transformative power of prayer. And Tony Gable will be in here at 2:00 talking about a century of consolation, honoring 100 years of Mary's promise to the world. So after lunch, we will have another wonderful lineup. I do want to remind everybody that Nathan and Michael, they spend a lot of time and do a great amount of work to bring such good people in here. And we have such a blessing in having those folks who come in for these interviews to give of their time to come in and share their stories. It's not real easy to always be able to do that. And so we are blessed. Please pray for us. Pray for all of them who come in and help us out. You are listening to 101.7 KJDM Lindsborg and Salina, 105.7 KMDG Hayes, 88.1 KRTT Great Bend, 88.1 KVDM Hayes, 89.1 KGOH Colby, and 107.3 K297AI Hill City. We're getting ready to have another interview right after we have a trivia question. So getting ready to start this trivia question at the 10 a.m. hour. Remember that you will call in to 785-621-4110. That's 785-621-4110. If you get that answer correct, then we will put you in the drawing at 6:00 for a drawing to the gift certificate. It's a $50 gift certificate. There we go. To Messenger Traditional Catholic Books and Gifts here in Hayes. And Jerome and Angela Schmeidler are the owners and operators of that. As I've said before, please go support them. They support us so wonderfully, and they have a beautiful store down there. Also check out, I think their daughters still make these wonderful little inspirational quotes on paper. Sometimes they even tape a little candy or something to it. It's just beautiful. Go down there, check out their store, talk with them, sit and read a book up in their loft, and just thank them for everything they do for us. All right, here's your trivia question. The white hat worn by a bishop as a mark of his office and a symbol of his authority is called a what? Is it A, kippah, B, fedora, C, mitre, D, bowler? The white hat worn by a bishop as a mark of his office and a symbol of his authority is called a kippah, B, fedora, C, mitre, D, bowler. 785-621-4110. That's 785-621-4110. All right, let's get, if you guys would pull your microphones close to you. We have Ted Carter and his wife in here. How are you guys doing today?
Good. How are you?
Oh, absolutely great. It's wonderful to be here. And then, having you guys in here, that helps out a lot. So just to introduce Ted, he's 55 years old and from Sterling, Kansas. He's a former gym owner, former lawn care business owner, and currently the owner of Carter Pest Control. He converted to Catholicism 2 years ago, and they are in here today to talk about Father Juan de Padilla. That is awesome. You guys can help me learn a lot about this. So I think the first thing is, can you start us off on who is Father Juan de Padilla?
So Father Juan de Padilla, is it okay if I take
yeah, you don't have to wear
them. So he was born in 1500 in, I think it's pronounced Andalusia, Spain.
Okay.
It's like the southern tip of Spain. And that's where actually Bishop Zumargra is from, that was in Mexico City, modern day Mexico City, when the whole Our Lady of Guadalupe image happened.
Okay.
So that's how they kind of were together, because they were from the same region in Spain. I don't know, there's not much information on why or how they came to Mexico, but they came over basically together sometime around 1526, 1529, somewhere in that area. And then, of course, the miracle of Our Lady of Guadalupe happened, I think it was 1531. So Father Juan de Padilla was, before he became a father, he was actually a soldier in the Spanish army. And then he became a father later, a priest later. And that's when he came over to New Spain, which is Mexico, with Bishop Zamarga. So they were basically where Mexico City is, modern day Mexico City is now.
Okay.
And so since he was the bishop's assistant, do you remember all the anomalies with the image and how like eye doctors have looked in the image of Our Lady of Guadalupe's eyes, and they can see images on the back of her eyeballs, just like a human eye. They've been able to blow it up to where they could identify that Father Juan de Padilla was standing right next to Bishop Zamarga when Juan Diego unfurled his tilma.
That's awesome.
So he witnessed the image. So fast forward, at this time, Coronado, he came over from Spain. Since he was the youngest brother in his family, he wouldn't inherit any of his parents' fortune, and they were very wealthy. But I guess how it would work out that his brothers would all have it before he did, and he was much younger than his brothers. So he came over to New Spain, which is Mexico, looking for fortune. He ended up marrying a woman in Mexico that was, her family was very wealthy, and so then he became wealthy. She funded his expedition to the Americas. And what he was doing is at that time, he actually became the governor of the Nuevo region in Mexico. He was the governor, and he had been hearing stories from all the Mexican Native Americans that there was these 7 cities of Cibola that were just filled with gold and fortune. And it was up north. And so he decided that he put together, I think it was 300 soldiers, Spanish soldiers. They basically had, I think, around 100 horses. They had various weapons. And he also brought 1,000 Mexican Native Americans with him as guides and to basically help out with the army. So they took off, and he brought 4 priests with him. And one was Father Juan de Padilla. He was the oldest. And then there were 2 brothers, and then another one that was even younger than the 2 brothers. And I think the brothers were like 16, 17 years old.
Oh, wow.
Yeah. So they were Franciscan priests. So they went with Father Juan, or with Coronado. They didn't have any interest at all in finding the golden cities. Their mission was to evangelize and convert whoever they could to Christianity along the way.
Okay.
So they ended up coming up through Mexico, came into Arizona, which they found the Native Americans. They ran into the Apaches and the Hopis and the Pueblos. I think they got along with the Pueblo pretty well, but the Apaches basically ran them off into Texas. So that's how they ended up into Texas. They went through Texas, searched part of Texas, couldn't find anything. And there was a Native American that they ran into, and they called him the Turk. And he had convinced them. He was actually from Quivira, which is Kansas. Basically the Sterling Lions Little River area.
Okay.
Is where the kingdom, they called it the Kingdom of Quivira. And he was actually from there. And they think that he came up with this whole big story that he knew where the cities of gold were, and they were in the kingdom of Quivira, and that he was from there and he could take them there. But all he was trying to do was make sure that he could get back there and had help to get back there. So this whole time he had led him through the panhandle of Oklahoma and into Kansas. And when they got into Kansas, they think it was somewhere around Dodge City that they had the first mass. So right in the Dodge City area, Father Juan gave his first mass. And so they continued on. They ended up in the Lyons, Sterling, Little River area. And that's where they met the Quivira Indians. And through some of our research, we found out that there was anywhere from 60,000 to 200,000 Quivira Indians in this area. So that's
a big population.
Yeah, it is really large. And in fact, it was a friend of mine that's in the construction business. They had bought it was an old hay barn that they actually wanted to build a basement. They wanted to put a house with a basement on it next to it. And it's just outside of Lyons. And the state wouldn't allow them to dig a basement because they said from basically Lyons to Chase, that's all Quivira burial grounds.
Oh my.
Yeah.
Wow.
And it's basically 5-6 miles from Lyons to Chase. So I guess now you can't dig any basements in this certain area. I don't know like how wide it is, but I mean, it's like a 5 to 6 mile area.
Oh, wow.
They won't let you, where they say it's all burial grounds.
Wow. That's amazing. Yeah, I did not know any of that. And I want to get right back to it. I'm going to break in really quickly. Teresa Flax, my mother-in-law, thank you for listening, Teresa. Really appreciate it. Great supporters, wonderful people. I have some of the best in-laws ever. And so thank you for listening and getting that question correct. The trivia question was, the white hat worn by a bishop as a mark of his office and a symbol of his authority is called a mitre. So we'll get to another question at 10:30, but Teresa got that by calling 785-621-4110. I also want to thank Tara and Brady Reed. Thank you very much for listening and for pledging. They pledged $150. And so that takes another of those $150 from our matching funds, and their pledge becomes $300 with those matching funds. We do still have matching funds left. So please call in to 785-621-4110. We started this hour with $4,525 in matching funds. Let's see if we can get them used up before the break. 785-621-4110. We're in talking with Ted Carter about the legacy of Father Juan de Padilla. He was a missionary and a martyr here in Kansas. And so we want to get just right back into that story. So Ted, then as they come and they meet the Quivira Indians, what was it? Was it immediately just like a, oh, hey, how you doing? Things are great. Or was there any contention? What did it look like when they met up with them?
So from everything I've read and different videos and stuff I've watched, there's a lot of confusion around it, but there's a couple that say that a war party went out and met them, and they drew a line on the ground with cornmeal, and were basically telling them, do not cross this line, because if you cross this line, we're going to kill you, basically. So they set up camp, not far away. And I think over a period of a few days, they saw that they weren't trying to threaten them or do anything like that. So they ended up welcoming them into their village. And this village was huge. And even though that there was like a main village and then all these other little villages that were, a few miles away from each other.
Like suburbs.
Yeah, basically, yeah. So I think over time they welcomed them. They weren't really there that long. I want to say from everything I've seen, it was like a 3 to 6 month period.
Oh, wow. Yeah,
So
that's
it
pretty
wasn't,
short.
yeah. But in that time, Father Juan de Padilla, from what I've read, said that he was able to convert pretty much the whole Quivira nation,
Wow.
and that they really loved him and revered him.
Any idea how he went about that? I mean,
no, it doesn't.
okay.
This has been such a hard subject because there is just not a lot of information about him. And even the information that's out there, a lot of it's conflicting.
Okay.
So it's hard to try to decipher what's true and what's accurate. You
Yeah.
know, and there's all kinds of information just about where he was born, what year, and then what year he died.
Uh-huh.
He died in 1542. So he's basically
But you got to piece
42
together
years old.
everything else.
Yeah.
Okay.
It's like, how did he get with Coronado? How did he even, he witnessed the miracle of the tilma, and now he ends up in basically our backyard where we live, which is amazing. One thing along the way that I forgot to mention, when they were in Arizona, they were the first Europeans to see the Grand Canyon.
Oh, wow.
Yeah. So I guess you could even say they were the first Catholics to see the Grand Canyon.
Wow. Yeah, that's awesome.
Yeah.
So then they get to meet the Quivira Indians, spend a very little time, but in that time, miraculously, through the power of God, they are mostly converted. Do you know why? Did they just up and leave because they're like, job here is done, or do you know what caused them to move on? Or
so they were still, Coronado was still searching for the 7 cities of Cibola.
Yeah. Okay.
And since he didn't find anything there, they kept hearing rumors from other Native Americans, because they would go out, they would send search parties out in different directions, just trying to find anything, any clues, any information or anything. And they kept hearing rumors that they were close and that they needed to continue on, like to the northeast. So they continued on. That's where they got to Coronado Heights. So, have you ever been to Coronado Heights?
I haven't.
It's really cool. But when you get up on top of Coronado Heights, I hadn't been there since I was like in 8th grade. And then we ended up having a customer that lives just right down the road from there. So my son and I, we went and looked at it. It's probably last October. So we went up there, and it is so cool, but you can just see forever up there. I think they said it's 300 feet above, like the valley that it's in.
Okay. Yeah.
So, I mean, you really you can see Salina, McPherson.
Oh my
goodness. You can see for miles.
Wow.
So anyway, when they got to the top of what is now Coronado Heights, he could see that there was nothing in sight, and that all you could see were Indian villages. So that's when he said, I'm done, I'm through, because he had basically blown through all of his fortune trying to find the 7 cities of gold, and they had found 0 gold along the way. So with what little money he had left, he was like, I'm not going on any further. We're going to turn around and go back to New Spain, which is Mexico. So they decided that they would go back to Mexico. Father Padilla and the other 3 priests, they decided they were going to split off from Coronado and go back to Quivira, to the kingdom of Quivira. So they did that. And this is where the story gets real conflicting.
Okay.
So they get back to Quivira. Of course, they're welcomed and everything, and they're there a few days, and they decide that there's a tribe called the Kaw Indians that were probably somewhere about 20 miles away from the kingdom of Quivira. But the Quivira and the Kaw were enemies. like bitter enemies.
Okay.
So Father Padilla decided him and the other three priests, they were going to go to the Kaw Indians and try to convert them as well. So they left, and they didn't really tell the Quivira what they were going to do, but somehow they found out where they were going and what they were trying to do. And a war party immediately went out because they were, I guess, from what it was said, they were jealous and they were angry that, you know, they would.
These are our enemies, and you're going to go try and talk to them.
Yeah. And they didn't want the Kaw to have more power than they had, because they were thinking that if they were converted to, somehow they would have more power over the Quivira, and then they would be able to take over the kingdom of Quivira.
Okay.
So the war party went out and found him, and as they were seeing him come up on him, Father Padilla said to the other priests, he said, they're going to kill us. They don't look friendly. So he kneeled down and prayed and gave himself up, and he told the other three, he said, run. And at this time, in the prairies, the grass was so tall that it was like shoulder to head high.
Wow.
So, you know, you could hide pretty easily in the grass. So the two brothers and the other priest, they took off, and they ended up not that far away to where they could still see what was going on. They got up on top of a hill to where the Quivira couldn't really see them, but they could see exactly what was going on. And they said that Father Padilla just stayed right there and kneeled down and prayed. And when they came up on him, they killed him pretty much immediately. And they said that when they killed him, they knew that the Quivira were genuinely sorry for what they did, because they had all got down on their knees and looked like they were praying, that like they had understood that they had done something really bad, and that they had instantly regretted it. And so I think this account is probably pretty accurate from everything that I've read and watched, because the two brothers and the other priest, they got away, and when they got back to Mexico, that's when they told their story and wrote it all down and everything. But they said that after the Indians got down on their knees and then basically put their faces on the ground, and it looked like they were basically trying to ask for forgiveness, that the sun went dark. And they said it was like kind of like an eclipse, but the sun went dark and a comet flew across the sky.
Wow.
Yeah.
That's crazy.
Yeah.
I've never heard of most of this stuff. And so, oh my goodness, hold that thought. I want to get right back to it in just a minute. Having a great conversation here with Ted Carter, talking about Father Juan de Padilla. I do want to remind everybody that we are on our last day of our spring Care-a-thon, and we want you to help us make it to our goal. Let's get to one last big push to get there. And I'd like to, if we could use up all of our matching funds before the lunch hour. So we got about another 35 minutes or so for you to call in and help us to use up those matching funds. We have a little bit over $4,000. If you call in and donate whatever you donate, it will be immediately doubled through the generous donations of our other folks who gave us those matching funds. So let's see if we can go ahead and get some big donors in there, a lot of small donors, whatever it takes to get us over the edge and use up those matching funds. Call 785-621-4110. That's 785-621-4110. If somebody wants to call in and just cover the rest of it, that would be pretty awesome. We've got $4,525 left in matching funds, or about $4,000. $4,375 if I'm doing my math right. I think about $4,375 left in matching funds. If you want to call in and make a donation of $2,025 for 2025, that would be great. If you can make a $250 donation, that would be great. Whatever you can do to help us continue in our evangelization efforts, we are 100% listener funded. That means you call 785-621-4110, 785-621-4110. Talking with Ted Carter about Father Juan de Padilla. So Ted, you've given me a bunch of information, like I said, that I didn't know. And it's great to hear about. Ended on that kind of miraculous little event. Is that recorded? I mean, being that there are very little eyewitnesses, is that recorded in their journal or something? Or
yeah, it's from, like I said, when they got back to Mexico, that's when they're telling everybody they could about what had happened and the miracle of basically the sun going dark and then a comet shooting across the sky, and how the Indians were, I mean, genuinely sorry for what they had done and knew that they had really messed up by doing that.
Yeah.
So then they took off, so they didn't see how what they did with him after that. But from what I've read in that, and this is from, a lot of it's from a book that we got in the Wichita Library out of their special vault. It's called The Old Quivira. But it's, the thing about it is it's historical fiction.
Okay.
But, historical fiction tries to be as accurate as it can be. The fiction part is that there weren't a lot of eyewitnesses. They couldn't back a lot of it up. So it's not like science fiction where it's all
just made. It's not all pie in the sky.
It's like tries to be as authentic as possible.
Okay.
So from this book, the Quivira usually buried people. They would just dig a pit and fill it with rock. But they said that they had genuinely loved Father Padilla so much that they built basically a big, elaborate limestone tomb. And a friend of ours, Gil Burkamp, he's been searching for Father Juan Padilla's remains for the last 14 years now.
Wow.
And he's done a bunch of research too. And then he's had problems finding facts and that about him too, because there just is not a lot. But one fact remains: he is the first martyr of the Americas, not just of America, but of the Americas.
Yeah, wow.
Meaning Mexico, America, and Canada.
Yeah.
And he was 100 years before, I can't remember the guy's name now, who they thought was the first martyr.
Okay.
So Father Juan de Padilla is the undisputed first martyr of the Americas.
Wow. Being that I don't know a lot about him, but there's lots of saints out there that I don't know about. Has his legacy been portrayed in a good light, in a bad light? I mean, no, even so what I'm thinking, although he's not a saint, but I'm a member of the Knights of Columbus. Columbus, a lot of times the guy gets thrown under the bus for things that actually he did not even do.
Mm-hmm.
And people have tried to vilify him in our age, and it's not like he's squeaky clean. He's a human being, but he's not the monster that people try to make him out to be. Is Father Padilla the same way? Have people gone different routes with him, or is everything kind of no, this is the man that he was?
Everything that I've read about him, they loved him.
Good.
But I have a feeling that if he becomes a saint, if Gil finds his remains, which we'll go into that a little bit too, but my fear is because Coronado was not so nice to the Native Americans.
Oh.
That they're gonna push him into the same category as Coronado. From what I've read is that Coronado mistreated him, but then Father would come back in and smooth things over and help them out.
Okay.
And I think that's how he earned the respect of so many Native Americans, is from his compassion and kindness.
Yeah. Wow. So yeah, let's pray for that. And then yes, I'm excited to get to the rest of the story here in just a little bit. So here in a few minutes, we'll do another trivia question. But first, I want to thank an anonymous donor who pledged $100, and that helps us to use up some more of those matching funds. Thank you for that anonymous donation, and we would ask that you would join with them and call 785-621-4110 to please make your pledge today. Let's see if we can use up the funds before our break. We got another 30 minutes here. I think we can do it. I know we've got people out there that can help us. Call 785-621-4110 and let's use up our matching funds. All right, back to stop. Also, Ivan and Shirley Worth pledged $100. So thank you, Ivan and Shirley. There you go. Some more of those matching funds. We love it, and we are blessed. Those people who gave it to us, they are faithful listeners and donors, and they love that you are using their money, which is amazing because it doesn't happen like that very often, where people say, yeah, here, take my money and use it with yours. Usually you have to pay interest on it. So please help us. And the interest that is gained might be the saving of a soul. Help us in our evangelization efforts by calling 785-621-4110 and getting us to the goal. Help us to use up those matching funds. All right, let's get back to Ted Carter, and then we'll have another trivia question here in just a little bit, but stay tuned. Oh, hold on. This is awesome. If you guys just want to keep breaking in, that's fine. I'll let Ted stay extra. We can listen, and he can inform us even afterwards, because I love breaking in. To announce this, we just had an anonymous donation of $1,000. An anonymous donation of $1,000. That is, you're doing exactly what I'm asking for. Thank you so much. Help us to get over the edge, just like our anonymous donor of $100, Ivan and Shirley with $100, anonymous donation of $1,000. Let's get there before lunch. 785-621-4110. That's 785-621-4110. And since you all did such a good job, and are just, you got me excited here. We're going to go ahead and do that second trivia question, because I am blessed to be the one that's sitting here watching these donations roll in. And I really appreciate it, and our station appreciates it. Here we go. Call the same number, 785-621-4110. Who was the first bishop of the Roman Catholic Church in the United States? Oh man, this is a good question. Who was the first bishop of the Roman Catholic Church in the United States? Was it A, Bishop Polycarp, B, Bishop Gerald Vinke, or C, Bishop John Carroll? Who was the first bishop of the Roman Catholic Church in the United States? Was it A, Bishop Polycarp? Was it B, Bishop Gerald Vinke? Or was it C, Bishop John Carroll? I think even if you weren't sure about this, you could narrow it down pretty quick, because one of these guys lived a long time ago. Another one of these guys happens to be our current shepherd. So that really only leaves one choice, 785-621-4110. And I'll get you the name of the winner, and we'll put that winner in the drawing for the $50 gift certificate to Messenger Traditional Catholic Books and Gifts. And please also continue to just bless us and make my day. Let's use up the matching funds. All right, back to Ted Carter talking about Father Padilla. All right, so where did we leave off?
I think we left off with how he was buried.
Okay, yep.
And that he's the undisputed first martyr of the Americas. And I've talked to my priest, Father Michael. I'm like, if they find him, they find his remains, and they're sure that it's him, how big of a deal is that going to be? He thinks it's going to be a huge deal. Like, whoever the new pope is may come and because that's basically the Catholic Church started where the first martyr is. So
yeah, that's the first evangelization mission to
yeah,
what we know as the United States.
yeah, and it ends up being right where we live.
That is so
Which
cool.
is crazy. Yeah. And just the connection I've had with Our Lady of Guadalupe, and not knowing any of this, and then finding out, Father Padilla witnessed it, and then ends up probably crossing right through Sterling and Lyons, and and where he was
Yeah.
later killed.
Wow.
It's just crazy.
Yeah, it is.
But anyway, I can't remember where I was going with
Well,
that,
let me break in really quickly, and then we'll get you back to where we want to be. So I want to congratulate Carol Bain is our trivia winner. The question there was, who was the first bishop of the Roman Catholic Church in the United States? That would be Bishop John Carroll. So thank you very much, Carol Bain, for listening, and we will get you put into that drawing. Once again, call 785-621-4110. That's 785-621-4110. My wife says, when you get excited, you need to slow down. So I'm trying to slow down sometimes when I'm reading that, because she's right. I get excited. I talk fast. 785-621-4110. All right. Here we go. Talking with Ted Carter about Father Juan de Padilla. And so that would also go, I think, a long way to his cause for sainthood then.
yeah.
If we were able to find his remains. Did you want to talk about that at all?
Yeah. So, I mean, they think that when they do find him, that he'll be canonized because, he was the first martyr of the Americas. And that there will probably be a huge church built, or a basilica even, somewhere close.
That would be grand.
To where he was.
So
yeah,
amazing.
it would be amazing. And the cross that I've told you, that's just a few miles outside of Lyons, in between Lyons and Chase.
Can you remind people about that?
Yeah, there's a huge marble cross that was erected in 1950 by the Knights of Columbus, in honor of Father Padilla. And it's erected at that spot because they found evidence that that's where a huge Quivira Indian village was at. And they found some other artifacts like crosses and stuff like that indicated that, well, they were crucifixes. So they were pretty sure that Father Padilla was at this site. So that's why that cross is actually right there. And then there's another cross that's very similar just outside of Dodge City, where they had their first mass in Kansas.
Oh, wow.
So that was erected, I think, also by the Knights of Columbus.
Okay.
But that's the site where they had their first mass.
Okay. Do we have? I imagine we don't, because you said it's really hard to piece this together. Are there any descendants from the Quivira Nation that have come down throughout? Since when did you say this was?
1542.
Okay.
Is when he was killed.
Okay. So since 1542, I mean, I'm sure the Quivira were around for a while, but do they have anything anywhere? Do they have descendants that can piece any of these?
That's the craziest thing about this. There is not a lot of information about what happened to the Quivira.
Really?
Because there was such a large nation, and then all of a sudden they were just gone.
Wow.
And it's really strange. So some theories say that they split into two different tribes. One became the Pawnee and one became the Wichita Indians. But there's not a lot of information out there exactly what happened to the Quivira. There's some speculation that they could have had a disease like smallpox or something like that wiped them out, but there's nothing really that talks about what happened to that whole nation of the Quivira, the kingdom of Quivira. It's really strange. It looks like they all, to me, if that whole area between Lyons and Chase is burial grounds, I mean, that's a lot of people.
That's a lot of people. Yeah.
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 So
Wow.
I don't know.
Okay.
That's kind of a mystery. And if you even look it up, you can't find anything
okay.
about it.
Yeah, it
Which
makes
is
it, man, that makes
strange.
it difficult.
Yeah.
Okay, I'm going to get right back to you again. But first, an anonymous secular Franciscan from the Juan de Padilla region called to say they are really enjoying this talk. So thank you
awesome.
so much for being here. Also, we got an anonymous donor who pledged $250 and another anonymous donor who pledged $300. And so that would be $550, which would make it an $1,100 pledge together with the matching funds. And so that is such a blessing. Maybe I can get a quick update. Let's see if I know that Nathan and Michael are listening. And so if you guys can give us a quick update, where are we at on our matching funds? One last big push, as we have been saying, we have about 20 minutes left to try and get our matching funds used up before the lunch hour. Michael, Nathan, if you're out there listening, send me an update. Where are we at on our matching funds? 785-621-4110. 785-621-4110. I am so blessed to be here. I'm so blessed that God has given me the gift of gab and has let my voice hold out for all week. So thank you so very much. Maybe even if you're just like, can we just get this guy to get off the air? Well, then fill up the lines with donations. 785-621-4110. Okay. So blessed to have Ted, you and your wife here with us. And I want to get back into this because, I mean, mysteries always intrigue me. I mean, we as humans, we're like, we want to know it. We want to know it now. But there is that mysterious piece that keeps us digging and keeps us going. And you said, you know, a guy who has been searching for 17 years,
14
years.
Yeah.
Either way, that's a long time to be searching for the remains. So what's he doing? How's he going about it? Has there been any aha moments? Can you fill us in?
There's been some crazy moments. His name is Gil Burkamp, and you really should have him on. He's got quite a story because he started out. Didn't they even go to New Mexico?
Well, tell him why he started. About his
Well, go ahead.
Well, he actually had a dream, and in this dream, God was telling him to search for the remains of
No
Father.
way.
Yeah,
So I guess you don't, when you get a St. Joseph moment.
exactly.
Yeah.
Exactly.
Well, I'm glad you said St. Joseph.
Yeah, because he went to the bishop at that time. Who was the bishop then?
I don't remember.
I don't remember. He went to the bishop, and the bishop was like, let's go take a walk. And the bishop's like, I don't really think you're going to be able to find him.
Uh-huh.
And Gil's like, but God asked me, what? And he's like, you have my blessings, go for it.
Wow.
But I just don't think you're going to find him. And so then he started out and went to New Mexico first.
Yeah, because there's a place in New Mexico that they claim that he's buried there, but they didn't find much information about it there. But they think that he had been there, but he wasn't buried there.
Okay.
And so the other location is in Harrington, Kansas, and that's where his journey actually really started. And this story is pretty crazy. So they went to Harrington and they stayed at the Catholic Church all night. It was him and probably like 14 other high school kids. And they were trying to find information out about Father Padilla. So they were spending the night at this Catholic church. And the lady that kind of takes care of the church said, okay, when you guys get ready to go to bed, I'm going to lock these doors so nobody can get in. All the doors will be locked. So just, if anybody goes outside, they're not going to be able to get back in. And they'd had a snowstorm a few days later, so the ground was covered in snow. And so they're all getting ready to go to bed, and she leaves. She goes, okay, I'm locking the door. Sorry.
No, that's okay.
So he's up at the front of the church, and he's really kind of down because he's like, we're not finding out much. This is kind of a lost cause. And he's like, he said he threw his pencil down and he goes, I'm done. this is stupid. I'm just leading these kids astray. And he said at that moment, the doors opened to the sanctuary, and this guy that he said kind of looked sort of like he was homeless walked in and walked about halfway down the aisle and stopped and goes, "What are you looking for?" And Gil's like,
a dead guy's
"We're-"
remains.
Yeah, he goes, "We're looking for Father Juan de Padilla's remains." And the guy just stared at him, and he goes, again, he shouted, "What are you looking for?" And he goes, "Well, Father Juan de Padilla's remains." And the guy just goes, "Okay," and turned around and left. And one of the kids that was sitting next to him had been scrolling on his phone. He's like, "Gil, look." He goes, that guy looked just like St. Joseph."
No way.
And they were all like, "He really did." And so they all ran after him and got to the doors, opened the doors. There were no footprints in the snow. They went all the way around the church. No footprints, nothing. They called the lady, talked to her, and she goes, "No, those doors were locked. I checked them." And she's like, "I've never seen anybody that looked like that around the church."
Probably thought they were crazy.
Yeah.
It's like,
So-
there's no way. somebody
So
could have
that's
come in.
what really lit him on fire to be like, okay, I think we're just visited by St. Joseph. We've got to do this.
Wow. So it was him and some high school
Yeah.
students.
Yeah.
Right. Yeah. So this is not just some dude coming back and being like, "Oh, guess what? I saw," but
Yeah.
like,
They all witnessed it.
wow. That is
And,
so cool.
Yeah. So then he just, I mean, I don't want to speak for him, but it seems like he's really not on any type of schedule. He's not in any hurry at all. He just says, "I'm just being guided by the Holy Spirit, and when it's time to dig, it's time to dig." And they just go out when he feels it.
Hold that thought for 1 second, please. Like, I'm on the edge of my seat here. But I do need to break in because we had an anonymous donor of $100 and also an anonymous donation of $250. So that's together a $350 gift. And when doubled, that would be a $700 gift. Thank you so very much for that. Let's see if we can make it there. Let's get I'm going to type really quick and go matching funds, please. All right, I'm sending it out there, and we'll see if they can give me a number, see what we got left, because you guys, you listeners, have been doing such a wonderful job on trying to get us over the edge of using up all those matching funds before lunch. 785-621-4110, 785-621-4110. We have another anonymous donor of $200 that just called in. That's $200 becomes $400. 785-621-4110. Let's keep it going. Let's keep those donations rolling in. I know that we're getting close. 785-621-4110. I bet if somebody called in with a donation of $2,025, that would probably put us over the edge, but I'm going to find out here soon. $2,025. Do we have a donor that can do that? 785-621-4110. If you can't do that, can you do 200? Can you give us 25? Whatever it is, 785-621-4110. All right, back to speaking with Ted Carter. So you said, I kind of do love that he's not just out there like digging his hands to the bone, wearing them down and just like, ugh, but really just kind of following the promptings of the Holy Spirit. Has he found anything that has given a little bit of hope?
Yeah, so they think they found the structure, and they found a lot of artifacts and even bones that they've sent off for testing.
Okay.
So I think what they're doing is doing some like carbon dating on the bones, so they know like, okay, approximately this is how old they are, so that they can say, yeah, this this could be it. Or
So they found an actual tomb like what you described earlier?
yeah.
Okay.
And okay, so you have to understand Gil is kind of secretive about this. So
Oh, I could understand why.
yeah.
That's okay.
Yeah, totally. And so he hasn't really, he just said that there's a structure, but through the research we've gone through, I'm picturing like it's probably because limestone is really prevalent in that area.
Uh-huh.
So it's probably a limestone structure.
Okay.
So, but they have found the structure that he thinks.
And they found human remains in there.
Mhm.
Do you know, did they find, and maybe this is why he's trying to be a little bit secretive. Do you know, did they find a full skeleton or?
That I don't know.
Okay.
But I know at one of his talks that he thinks when they do actually find him that he'll be incorrupt, or whatever he's wearing will be intact, and that it will be obvious who it is.
Okay.
So I think that's his hope that.
Do they have, do you know, and maybe not, because I'm sorry, I have so many questions. Do you know, or do they have anything from him that they could actually do DNA testing, or are we basically just looking at carbon dating and going, okay, well, here is somebody who matches what his DNA would be like?
I think, didn't he mention DNA?
Oh, I'm not
I
sure.
thought that he did. I could be wrong.
Okay, that's all right.
But
if
I
you don't know,
thought he did mention DNA to where it would like say, okay, he's say like Spanish descent and
yeah,
stuff like that. But it, it wouldn't conclusively tell you exactly who he was.
Correct.
But I think it's something along that line that they could tell, his descent.
Okay.
And his ancestry.
We saw him last week, and he said we are very, very
close.
So I don't know what's being tested or where it's being tested, but
okay,
they're close.
Before I forget, I did ask him. I said, "So had you been thinking about Father Padilla a long time before you had this dream?" He goes, "No." He goes, "I didn't even know who he was, and when I had this dream that God told me to go find him, he goes, I had to look up who he was."
That's awesome.
Yeah. So because I kind of wondered, like, okay,
is it in your own head?
Yeah, this guy, he had been thinking about him for quite a while, and then he had this dream, but he said, no, I didn't even know who he was.
Wow.
So yeah, so it's a great leap of faith for him just to take this on,
Yeah.
And
keep that thought. Let me get right back to you. I do have an update. We have $1,900 left. We have about 10 minutes. So who can get us over the edge of those $1,900 and it's 1,900 even. Oh, here's one person. So Linda Baskell pledged $250. So now we are taking that down to 1,650 if I'm doing my math right. Yes, that would be right. And so $1,650 left in matching funds. If somebody wants to cover all of that, that would be awesome. 785-621-4110. If we have several people that call in like Linda did and give 250, 300, 1,000, whatever you can give, 785-621-4110. Thank you so much. Let's get to that finish line. All right, let's get back to talking with Ted Carter about Father Padilla. And so if they did find his remains, is there already a cause out there for canonization for him, or?
I think so. I'm not totally sure on that.
Okay.
But I think that they have talked about there is a road to that because of him being the first martyr. And I think that they can actually prove that he was the first martyr. It's just without his remains, it's kind of hard to say.
But if they were able to do that, that would be fast tracked.
Yeah.
So,
okay. And it kind of makes me wonder who the new pope will be, and if that will happen fast, or if it'll be long and drawn out or not.
Yeah. So then I really in these last 8 minutes, if you would, because I'd like to go back and kind of also just readdress, what is your, as you came into the church not too long ago, how many years has it been?
2 years,
Just
a
2
little
years
over
now.
2. Yeah.
Okay. What was your, you had mentioned it earlier, what was your connection to Our Lady of Guadalupe that maybe even helped fuel this understanding and this desire to learn more about Father Padilla?
Well, my first, it was during our CIA class, Father Michael Brungart was talking about Our Lady of Guadalupe, and that's when I used to play at a softball tournament every summer at Our Lady of Guadalupe in South Hutch.
Oh yeah, we did too.
But I didn't know that was a Catholic church. I didn't know that was the Blessed Mother Mary. I just thought it was a Mexican church.
Hence why is Father Michael talking about a softball field?
There's some Hispanic lady out front.
Like
That's all
when
I
he
know.
when he first mentioned her name, I'm like, hey, yeah, I've actually heard of her. So then I don't know, it just ignited a flame with me that I just wanted to know as much about her as I possibly could.
Yeah.
And so I started watching all kinds of videos, reading everything I could about her and all the anomalies with her image and all of this. And I mean, it just blew my mind. And it really made me very emotional, and I could not figure out why until my lovely wife called me one day and said, hey, did you know she's the patroness of the unborn? And I just,
Oh wow.
I mean, it hit me like a bolt of lightning. I was like, that's it.
Wow.
That is totally it.
Yeah.
Because I don't know if you remember my abortion testimony.
Yeah.
So she's been very important in my life.
Wow.
And then to find out that Father Padilla was actually there and witnessed the whole thing, and now is basically buried in our backyard.
Yeah.
I mean, that's amazing.
That is amazing.
It's like I will be eternally grateful to her because I feel like she brought Ted to the church. But, it's just, it's a witness and a testimony to how she's been at work in our lives forever,
Yeah.
and for all of it to just land literally in our backyard. I mean, it's not a coincidence.
Yeah.
No.
Yeah.
That is so awesome.
Yeah.
Then in maybe the next 3 minutes, would you, because this always gets me going, could you give us some of those miraculous things that are involved with the tilma? Because I think there's a lot of people out there who are listening that maybe don't know, like even the thing with the eyes that you were talking about earlier. People don't understand just how miraculous this is.
Yeah. So just a quick rundown. So they've examined it with infrared lights and vision and stuff like that. There are no brush strokes on the image. It's not paint. It's the flakes that they've been able to take off for testing. It's not a pigment of anything on this earth that they can match it to. Her eyeballs are just like human eyes. They have an image on the back of the eye that's a reverse image, just like a human eyeball. The other crazy one is doctors have been able to put a stethoscope where her heart would be, and they can pick up a heartbeat.
No.
Yeah.
I did not know about that one.
They put it on her womb, had a heartbeat of, was it 114 beats per minute for like a little boy?
No way.
Yeah, they've actually picked
Oh
up
my
heartbeats
goodness.
with that. Throughout the years, they've like measured it and everything like that. And they've concluded that every year it grows a little bit, the image gets a little bit bigger, and the colors are getting just a little bit brighter.
Seriously?
Yeah. They've also concluded just lately that it's actually floating above the tilma, that it's not imprinted in the tilma, but it's actually just like a millimeter above it, that it's just floating.
Yeah, I've heard that one. Like, oh my
And
goodness.
that's, I mean, how do you even explain any of that?
You don't.
And then the terrorist I think it was in the 20s or 30s, 1920 or 30s. It's kind of when communism was trying to sweep across Mexico. So a terrorist showed up with a bouquet of roses, and this is when it was still outside. And it was just displayed outside in the open air, and it was in a glass frame. And that's the only protection it had. So he showed up, he had 21 sticks of dynamite in this bouquet of roses, and he left it and walked off right at the foot of the image. So it blows up. There's a huge like marble communion rail around it. Totally destroyed it. Huge brass crucifix that bent over backwards.
Oh, I've seen a picture of that. Yeah.
Did not touch the image, did not break the glass, just single pane of glass, but glass for windows for blocks, and blocks were totally blown out.
Wow.
And like damage to buildings on around it were done.
Wow.
But didn't even touch the image, did nothing to it.
That is so awesome.
And a personal story, hopefully I won't get emotional, but so, they found musical notes on the insides of the petals of her dress.
I've heard this, yeah.
And so they've made a song from it. And it's like a song you've never heard before. I mean, it's instrumental, but it's like a heavenly, it's just hard to describe until you hear it. So a friend of mine, I had just begged him to go to different church events. And he would always say, yeah, I'll do that. And he had struggled with drugs and alcohol for a long time. And then he's been clean and sober for 10, 15 years, but just a great guy. So at the last minute, he'd always text and say, hey, something has come up. I can't go. So anyway, the image was going to be there at our church in Lyons, at our parish, that had a circle, is just a little circle of the original tilma on the image, and it'd come up from Mexico as a pilgrimage. So he goes, yeah, that sounds pretty cool. I'll go. So right before we're getting ready to go, I see a text from him like, he's going to say he's not going to be able to make it. And he says, hey, I'm in the parking lot waiting for you.
Wow.
And so we're like, okay, we got to get over there quickly before he leaves.
Yeah.
So we get there. They go through all the deal about the image and everything. And then they start talking about the song, and they play the song. And I look over, and he's got goosebumps, and he's like just tears running down his face.
Yeah.
And I said, hey, man, you okay? And he's like, yeah. He said, 25 years ago, I was going to kill myself.
Oh, my goodness.
I was going to blow my brains out. And he said, I was in my truck. Radio wasn't on, nothing. And he said, I heard this exact song.
Oh, my goodness.
Yeah.
Wow.
And he said, I have not heard it until tonight.
Oh, my.
I'm just like, wow.
Oh, my goodness. That is, unfortunately, we are out of time. Holy cow. Way to leave us on that cliffhanger, kind of, but also so awesome. Ted, thank you so much.
Thank
we are
you.
so blessed by your witness and everything that you have done. And thank you for marrying this wonderful man. Have a wonderful day.
Thank you.
Thanks. You have been listening to Ted Carter and talking about Father Juan de Padilla. Want to thank some people really quickly, and then we'll get to our lunch break. I want to thank an anonymous donor of $25, an anonymous donor of $150, Larry and Mary Schlick with giving $300, listening on 89.1 KGOH, Mel and Jenny Augustine pledged $150 on top of their regular monthly donation. Mary and Larry Schlick, as I said, pledged that $300. Anonymous donor of $1,000. We may have made it. We will check on that, but I thank you so very much. Call 785-621-4110, just like they did. You're listening to 101.7 KJDM Lindsborg and Salina, 105.7 KMDG Hayes, 88.1 KRTT Great Bend, 88.1 KVDM Hayes, 89.1 KGOH Colby, and 107.3 K297 AI Hill City. We'll be back after lunch.